that's the best part about removing your tonsils. You don't have to do that again. It's literally a once in a lifetime thing that, whoop, hold on. When the 2000s began, it started a new age for the Muppets. Unfortunately, it was a dark age. After the failure of Muppets from Space, the team at the Jim Henson Company came to terms with the fact that even after several movies and a TV show, they were still not over the passing of Jim. On top of that, several Muppet veterans moved on from the franchise due to their busy schedule or their old age, like Frank Oz, Jerry Nelson, and Jerry Jewell. So it was a guarantee that the Muppets will never be the same. This is why the Henson family tried to sell the entire company. But that did not work as well as planned, and they later ultimately decided to keep their father's business. It wasn't until February 17th, 2004, when the Hensons agreed to sell the Muppets to the company that tried to get their hands on the franchise for almost 15 years, Disney. At first, their new owners were having a rough time presenting Kermit and the gang as members of the Disney family, with not so well received projects like The Muppets Wizard of Oz, and constant leadership changes at both the company and the new studio built for them. But then came the end of 2009, when the Muppets became viral sensations thanks to a YouTube video where they sang a cover of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. As a result, their fame began to rise up again as they were enjoying their time as internet stars, releasing hit video after hit video. This, coincidentally, turned out to be the perfect setup for their true comeback. In 2011, the Muppets returned to the big screen with a movie that is simply called, well, The Muppets.
It's the story of Walter, a big fan of the Muppets who also happens to be a Muppet himself. When he took a trip to Los Angeles with his human brother and closest ally Gary and his girlfriend Mary, he overheard that a greedy oil tycoon named Tex Richmond wants to take down the Muppet Theater to get the oil underneath the ground. And the only way to prevent him from doing so would be if the Muppets buy it back for $10 million before their original contract expires. And as the Muppet fan that Walter is, he calmly reacted to that information by Walter! When the three later found Kermit the Frog and told him about the situation, they all head out to reunite the Muppets who went their separate ways so that they can raise the money and save the theater. All while Gary struggles between choosing to live the rest of his life with Mary or with his Muppet brother. The idea of this reboot all started back in 2008, where Jason Segel and Nicholas Stoller proposed to Walt Disney Studios' Executive Vice President of Production, Kristen Burr, to make a new Muppet movie. Their vision for the feature was a throwback to the classic Muppet films, featuring a lot of cameos and a plot where the whole gang comes together to save the old theater. Not only did they get a deal to write the picture, but the studio also signed on David Hoberman and Todd Lieberman to be the producers under their company Manderville Films. Separately, during that time, Disney was planning to revive Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell's old script of the cheapest Muppet movie ever made, even announcing it during the 2009 D23 Expo. They brought in Frank Oz to update the script with Jim Lewis, but the studio eventually scrapped it in favor of making Segel and Stoller's film, which was previously called the greatest Muppet movie of all time. And no, I'm not hyperbolically praising the feature, that was its actual title in the first draft.
And speaking of that first draft, it was very different compared to how the movie ended up. Like how the plot was supposed to be about a ventriloquist and his puppet, whom the latter wanted to become a member of the Muppets. Also, the ending would have included a plot twist in which Tex Richmond turns out to be Kermit in a human suit who made up that whole oil plan to bring the Muppets back together. Another alternative ending would have featured Kermit telling the audience that they would revive the Muppet Show during the fall on ABC. But when the network got word about the line, they went to Jason Segel and told him, yeah, nice try, buddy, but no, we're not doing that. And I know exactly what you're thinking, but we'll get there when we get there.
Back during the early reports, there were speculations that Stoller would also be the director. But that job was actually given to James Bobin to mark his feature directorial debut. Along with getting Pixar's brain trust, the group of the animation studio's most prominent filmmakers and leaders to help improve the script. Around the end of 2010, work on this new Muppet movie began strong, with principal photography beginning, and the first batch of promotion was released to announce that Siegel was also starring in the film with Amy Adams, Chris Cooper, and Rashida Jones, along with revealing the newest addition to the Muppets, Walter, performed by Peter Linz. Also, as I previously stated, in order to capture the spirit of the classic Muppet movies, they wanted to gather as many cameos and special guests as possible. And in the film, they were able to feature Alan Arkin, Jack Black, Emily Blunt, James Carville, Bill Cobbs, Leslie Feist, Dave Grohl, Zach Galifianakis, Donald Glover, Whoopi Goldberg, Selena Gomez, Neil Patrick Harris, Judd Hirsch, John Krasinski, Ken Jeong, Jim Parsons, Rico Rodriguez, Mickey Rooney, Kristen Schaal, and Sarah Silverman. In the original script, while they did manage to get a few like Jack Black and Emily Blunt, they wanted to get Christian Bale, Mel Brooks, Steve Carell, George Clooney, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Matt Damon, Jon Favreau, Charles Grodin, Anne Hathaway, Lisa Lampanelli, Rachel Ray, Jeff Ross, Bob Saget, Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, and also consider Craig Ferguson.
It's good to see you,
It's good
man.
to see you as
You
well.
look great. I'm so happy for you. The Muppet movie's coming out. It's fantastic. And you said I was going to be in it, and I'm not in it. And
Smorgasbord. No, I understand. It came down to you or Corey Feldman, and we moved.
No, I understand. Shoot the money, man. Shoot the money.
They did, however, film appearances from Rob Corddry, Billy Crystal, Ricky Gervais, Kathy Griffin, Sterling Knight, Wanda Sykes, and Danny Trejo, but their shots ended up getting cut from the final film. They even had an idea to have Elmo from Sesame Street to make an appearance, but it turned out that he charges a major fee to show up in front of the camera. However, the most noteworthy cameo for the Muppets in the film is Jerry Nelson as the telethon's announcer.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Kermit the Frog.
The reason I said that is because this, and being the announcer for the Jim Henson's Musical World concert at Carnegie Hall, were the last roles he played outside of Sesame Street before he passed away in 2012. From there, performer Matt Vogel was left in charge of the majority of Nelson's characters. He already took the mantle as Floyd, Lou Zealand, and Robin in 2008, and made his debut as Uncle Deadly with this movie, but it wasn't until 2013 when he became the permanent performer of who is arguably Nelson's most iconic character, the Count. As the movie required to bring back many of the cast of The Muppet Show, the production team had to recreate several characters that haven't been used in years. On top of that, they wanted to make sure that they used the actual Muppets as much as possible instead of relying on CG for the more technical shots. This proved to be a challenge for visual effects producer Janet Muswell Hamilton. As she explained, "I spent lots of time with the puppeteers, and the director of course, discussing ways to achieve our ideas. We needed cool concepts that no one's seen before, all while maintaining the integrity of the Muppets, the Muppet franchise, the Muppet name, the Muppet feeling." The puppeteers were very intent on keeping everything, as they say, very Muppety. It's a lot harder working with the fluffy characters than it is working with their computer-generated counterparts. You must always keep in mind where the puppeteers will stand, because they're there even though the audience doesn't see them, how they hold their puppets, and if they're able to move in certain positions. How can we help them achieve something new and exciting without undermining the creative presence of the Muppets? While they were filming at many notable monuments, there were also some places where they had to transform it into the Muppet environment they needed. The exterior of the Muppet Theater was actually the Disney-owned El Capitan Theater in Hollywood Boulevard with the marquee digitally changed, while the interior was filmed in Universal Studios Soundstage 28, the same famous stage that was used for 1925's The Phantom of the Opera. Muppet Studios was in the Jim Henson Company lot, and the insides were done in Walt Disney Studios, and the small town of Small Town, USA was shot in Disney's Golden Oak Ranch and at the back lot of Warner Brothers Studios. For the music, Siegel did consider writing them himself, but then realized that making true Muppet songs requires greater songwriting experience to capture that same emotional impact as something like Rainbow Connection. That's why Bobin brought in Brett McKenzie to write and produce the musical numbers, whom the two previously worked together when they created the series based on the band McKenzie's in Flight of the Conchords. He had to be reminded of some rules that the Muppets could never do, like refer to themselves as puppets, but alongside the score by Christopher Beck, they worked hard to capture both the emotions of the story and the Muppets' signature wackiness. Alongside Mackenzie, other songwriters stepped in to create the musical numbers like Jeannie Lurie, Eris Archantis, Chen Neiman, Paul Roman, and Ali D. Theodore. As the time was getting closer to release the movie throughout 2011, the Muppets went all out on the marketing. They created numerous trailers that parodied the films of that year, including an original romantic comedy spoof called Green with Envy.
Two people searching for love.
This is the most romantic thing ever. I've always dreamt of seeing Los Angeles.
One chance to go the distance.
I was just wondering what the plan was for dinner tonight.
Oh, I don't care. What do you feel like?
Okay.
They also released a tribute album where several contemporary artists sing some of the popular Muppet songs called the Green Album. Kermit showed up at the premiere of Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, and they made appearances in shows like Saturday Night Live, Dancing with the Stars, The X Factor, and WWE Monday Night Raw.
Listen, everybody, we don't want any trouble from you or your mother. What? What are they saying?
Yes, when the Muppets returned to theaters after their last picture over 12 years ago on November 23, 2011, accompanied by the Toy Story short Small Fry, Kermit and the gang experienced great success for the first time in years. The film received critical acclaim as critics praised the way the picture was able to bring back the Muppets' signature charm and humor, while simultaneously delivering a strong emotional core with the new characters. Even on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie's tomato meter has a near 100% rating with an average review score of around 8 out of 10. However, not everyone was happy with the new film. Frank Oz, who wasn't on board with the script, had some particular criticisms with the final result. He did say there were some wonderful things about it, yet felt that the movie lacked sincerity. However, the one thing he did find positive was that it got people talking about the Muppets again. At the box office, let's say that they raised more than they did during the telethon. While there was some competition like Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 in the way, the film beat the record of the original Muppet movie to become the highest-grossing puppet film with $88.6 million domestically and a worldwide total of over $165 million. Soon afterwards, the movie's success continued as the Muppets earned an extra $58.3 million in Blu-ray and DVD sales, and received some recognition during awards season, where the Muppets received their first Oscar for winning Best Original Song with Man or Muppet. Not to mention their first Oscar recognition since The Muppets Take Manhattan. Although it was a strange year for the category because it was only that and Real in Rio from the animated film Rio that got nominated. Apparently it was just a really bad year for movie songs and the rest was just not good enough for a nomination.
Well, you could have just said that.
Throughout the 2000s, the Muppets were having a hard time to stay relevant while they were settling in their new homes at Disney. But thanks to the filmmaking talents of Jason Segel, Nicholas Stoller, and James Bobin, they were able to recapture what made the Muppets so entertaining during their prime, and presented it in a way that modern audiences could enjoy. And after receiving a box office hit, their first Oscar, and a new member with Walter, the feature made the life of the Muppets really feel like a happy song. But amongst everything that Kermit and his friends got at that time, the most significant reward that they earned from the 2011 movie was that it made the Muppets popular again. In fact, they became as famous as they were back during their days with Jim Henson, and that was even more prevalent the following year. They were awarded with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and they hosted a comedy gala during the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal, Canada.
For just going today.
ready for the Montreal. We're just on the making the poutine.
But most importantly, Disney noticed the success and popularity that the Muppets achieved. So much so that they announced something that could be best described in song.
We're doing a sequel. We're back by popular demand.
In Muppets Most Wanted, Kermit and the gang have signed on with their new manager, Dominic Bad Guy,
It's pronounced bad G. It's French.
to go on an international tour. However, Dominic's true intentions with the Muppets is to use them as a distraction so that he could steal the crown jewels of England with his boss, one of the most dangerous criminals in the world, Constantine. And since he looks nearly identical to Kermit, Constantine swapped places with the frog so that he could lead the Muppets in disguise, while Kermit is locked up in the gulag. And as they put on a show from country to country, it's up to the Muppets to realize the big switch and save Kermit before Constantine and Dominic get away with their heist. A few months after the 2011 movie was proclaimed a hit, Disney went to talk with James Bobin and Nicholas Stoller about returning to their same jobs on another Muppet feature, which they immediately agreed and officially made Bobin tied with Brian Henson in directing the most theatrically released Muppet movies with 2 each. However, Jason Segel, the human star and the third in the creative trio of the predecessor, decided not to return for the sequel, especially when he felt like he accomplished his mission with the movie. He stated, "I have handed off the Muppets to my writing partner and to James Bobin. My goal was to bring the Muppets back, and I feel like I accomplished that. I feel like they're in really good hands, but it was half a decade of my life. I just want a little breather, and I know they're going to nail it." Later on, they also brought back Christopher Beck and Brett McKenzie to supply the score and the songs for the film respectively, and this time, McKenzie was on his own to write all the musical numbers. And as an added bonus, Brett's Flight of the Conchords partner, Jermaine Clement, made an appearance as the Prison King.
Old friend, since you are back, I guess you are in charge of prison again. Here, take prison crown.
There were speculations that Segel could show up in a cameo, but he quickly denied it. For their next film, The Muppets Again, and no, I did not say that for the sake of comedy, that was actually the movie's original title.
Let's give it a name. How about the Muppets Again?
Since the sequel to the original Muppet movie was a heist film with the Great Muppet Caper, Bobin and Stoller decided to follow the same steps and make their own version of a Muppet Caper. One that takes inspiration by the past Muppet films like The Great Muppet Caper and The Muppets Take Manhattan, as well as other heist movies like The Pink Panther and The Thomas Crown Affair. Like before, the movie features a plethora of cameos. However, some of the celebrities who got their appearance cut from the 2011 movie got another chance to show up in Most Wanted, like Ricky Gervais being the main human star, Rob Corddry, and Danny Trejo. Another notable cameo is Tony Bennett, who appeared alongside his good friend and singer Lady Gaga on his final film appearance. On a side note, on top of her appearance in Most Wanted, the Muppets teamed up with Gaga a few months prior on a Thanksgiving special called Lady Gaga and the Muppets Holiday Spectacular. Originally, Christoph Waltz was supposed to play Jean-Pierre Napoleon, the Interpol agent searching for Constantine alongside Sam the Eagle. But because of scheduling conflicts, he had to step back from the role while Ty Burrell took the part. Then again, Waltz was still able to show up to make a cameo appearance.
Please welcome our first act, Herr Christoph Waltz dances the waltz.
When The Muppets' latest caper was released in theaters on March 21st, 2014 with the Pixar animated short based on Monsters University, Party Central, its results reflect the fact that this is a sequel.
And everybody knows that the sequel's never quite as good.
Critics still gave the film positive reviews, but they weren't as enthusiastic as before, as their thoughts range from being good to just passable. The songs, the human actors, and the comedy were good enough for them to consider the experience enjoyable, But the rest, like the plot, just didn't work. And what's worse, it turned out to be a box office disappointment, only making $51 million domestically and a grand total of $80.4 million.
When looking at those results, many people theorize as to what is it that made Most Wanted not feel as wanted by audiences. Some say that the marketing leaned too much on social media. Some say that the Muppets had better luck with an American Thanksgiving release in late November than one in late March. And some say that there were already enough family films that people spent a ticket on, like Frozen, the Lego Movie, and DreamWorks' Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Either way, the movie did not earn enough to make back its $50 million budget.
While this may not have the same happy ending as its predecessor, it did find a way to deliver something to the public that resulted in Muppets Most Wanted to leave a greater impact than anyone could ever expect, and that is with the memes. The frog was always a popular subject in meme culture, but Kermit and Constantine's first encounter became a bigger phenomenon than the movie it originated.
While Kermit is beloved international icon, I am reduced to internet meme.
Oh, Constantine.
Even the commercial tie-ins for Muppets Most Wanted provided some famous meme material. However, even if it didn't do well for Disney, there was one fun thing that the company did that was related to the movie. On August 23, 2014, Disney Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World had a special event called Villains Unleashed, where many of the Disney villains showed up throughout the park as meet and greet characters. One of them was Constantine Behind Bars, performed by the same guy who played him in the film, Matt Vogel, as he was having a chat and taking pictures with guests. According to some who went to the event, Constantine was such a popular villain that the lineup to meet him went up to 3 hours long. A couple days later, fans were treated with another guest meetup, this time with Vogel himself. Yes, Most Wanted wasn't able to make lightning strike twice for the Muppets, but the fact alone that they were able to get a sequel not long after the reboot was still a testament to that sudden burst of fame that they had at the time. And while not everyone was dazzled by their latest big screen caper, Brian Henson was said to have enjoyed it more than the 2011 movie, and mentioned that his dad would be thrilled the Muppets are continuing. Because this one flopped, some may think this would be the end. But no, my friends, this is when they get to do it all again. And like I said, what happened to Muppets Most Wanted did not deter Disney away from doing more with the group. Around the time of the 8th movie, the team was talking with Disney Theatrical Productions about the possibility of bringing back the Muppets live on stage, similar to what they did in Montreal back in 2012, maybe even on Broadway. And in 2015, the gang had their own short-form series on Disney Junior called Muppet Moments, where Kermit, now joined by his friends, returned to his Sesame Street days by having a chat with children.
I know. You should do it all the time. You should not talk. You should just go.
No.
But the next big project that the company had in store for them would be something that was much bigger than their small talk in Muppet Moments. One that made ABC reconsider Jason Segel's alternative ending line for Kermit at the end of the reboot. As they got their big break on the big screen, it was time to give them another chance on television. And just like the 2011 movie, their next show was simply called The Muppets. The series is a glimpse at the life of the Muppets, mostly in their regular jobs at the late-night talk show Up Late with Miss Piggy. But of course, as it is a production run by the Muppets, there are always some problems that come in and turn their work into chaos, especially with the tension between Kermit and Miss Piggy. During the spring of 2015, ABC ordered a pilot for a new primetime Muppet series, their first in nearly 20 years since the release of Muppets Tonight, and asked Bill Prady and Bob Cashell to be the writers and executive producers. The interest for the show was already there, as Netflix was thinking about co-producing it for their streaming platform, but ABC was committed to the Muppets staying in their network. When it comes to Brady, while he is mostly known for being the co-creator of The Big Bang Theory, he started his television career by working for Jim Henson. Back in the 1980s, after his first TV job as the writer for a few episodes of You Can't Do That on Television, Brady went to work at the Jim Henson Company, where he began in the merchandising department, was involved in a failed TV special about computer literacy, and writing for some small side projects. It wasn't until 1987 when he got into television writing and became a more prominent player in Henson's team, where he wrote for a couple of episodes of the Fraggle Rock animated series and became part of the writing staff of the Jim Henson Hour and the writer of Muppet Vision 3D. In fact, when the team created Chip for the Jim Henson Hour, the character is actually a Muppet caricature of Brady. Even after Jim's passing, Bill continued to write for the Muppets throughout the 1990s, like The Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson, segments for Muppet Classic Theater, and Billy Bunny's Animal Songs. At the end of 2006, Brady wrote and produced a pilot that can debatably be considered the precursor of what was to come in the Muppets' future. It was a mockumentary-style special where a filmmaker and his crew follow Kermit as they find the other Muppets who went their separate ways and reunite them all so that they could create a new TV series. While it also featured some special guests like Melina Canacaredes and John Landis, the project never grew from being just an unaired pilot. At the most, the performers believed that it was an excuse to get the team back together to play as the Muppets again. Fast forwarding to 2015, Brady decided to revisit the idea of a Muppet mockumentary series, especially when the genre became mainstream with shows like The Office and Modern Family, and would be a great opportunity for the team to create a parody of those comedies.
I hate these interviews. I love those interviews. Great device.
Oh, good.
Which is why he brought Cushell to be the co-showrunner so that Bill could still work on The Big Bang Theory. And they both got to work on the pilot after ABC made the order. The result was a 10-minute presentation where the Muppets got together at ABC to start their new show. But the only thing that's keeping them from doing so was getting Miss Piggy on board, featuring special guests like Elizabeth Banks and Topher Grace. The pilot also presented some of the main plot lines the characters would experience throughout the show, like Kermit and Piggy's complex relationship, Fozzie meeting his human girlfriend's parents, and the mature tone to establish that the show is aimed for an older audience than their typical family-friendly demographic. Not only did the executives love the pilot, but they gave it a standing ovation and greenlit the show for their upcoming fall lineup. The pilot was later shown during the Muppets panel at the San Diego Comic-Con, and soon afterwards was uploaded on YouTube.
Sorry, too long between jokes. You see, that's what happens. You see, his question was about having barnyard animals all over the set. And I said sweeping up. Never mind. Too long.
Huh. Would you look at that? The Muppets are interacting with the audience while the performers are right there in plain sight and not even trying to hide that they're playing the characters with their mouths openly moving. I don't know about you, but it's as if performing a Muppet when the performer has nowhere to hide is completely different from ventriloquism, and that the performer is only staying true to the spirit of how they are brought to life instead of putting on an act that's actually a completely different type of puppetry.
For the promotion of the series, the team decided to take a different approach than the last two movies. Instead of going all out to grab people's attention, they decided to make some gossip.
This is the split that really has people upset.
Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog calling it quits.
Say it ain't so.
And now the latest conscious uncoupling to add to perhaps the worst summer in celebrity relationship history is also perhaps the most devastating of all.
The famous Muppet couple confirmed the news on Twitter, stating they will be seeing other people, pigs, or frogs, but will continue to work together on their TV show this fall.
On top of the Muppets returning to prime time, they also made the buzz that Kermit and Miss Piggy broke up, despite still working together in the series, and that the frog already moved on with a new girlfriend named Denise. When the Muppets went back on the air on September 22nd, 2015 with the episode Pig Girls Don't Cry, The reception was as rough as Miss Piggy's attitude.
It's a code red.
Ah, code red! Oh my God! This is not a drone!
The series received a massive mixed bag of reactions, where some critics enjoyed the humor and the update to their formula, while others hated the mockumentary approach, the romance subplots, some of the off-putting mature tone, and the portrayal of the Muppets dealing with real-life situations. Then again, the premiere did well by gathering a total of 11.7 million viewers during its first week. Afterwards, however, the ratings took a significant drop and only went downhill from there. During the middle of its airtime, Bob Cashell walked out as the co-showrunner, and was replaced by Kristen Newman in an attempt to fix some of the creative problems that people criticized for the final 6 episodes of the season, including dropping all the romance, have the Muppets be in wackier scenarios, add a pet penguin named Gloria Estefan for levity, and find a way to bring Kermit and Miss Piggy back together. It did require a nearly 2-month break from airing new episodes to incorporate the adjustments, but it was unfortunately too late, as the series was cancelled on May 12, 2016, with the final 2 episodes, Generally Inhospitable and Because Love, capping off the show on March 1st of that year. Okay, so maybe the Muppets' mainstream comeback in the 2010s was relatively short-lived, but it was proof that even after all these years, and long after the passing of Jim Henson, the Muppets are still able to put on a show and give audiences a great time just like they did back in the 1970s. And if they were able to return to the mainstream like that, then there is certainly a chance that they could do it again. However, after the 2015 series was cancelled, the Muppets would experience a drastic change, especially when Kermit made the news for the most unexpected reason.
Usually the only drama that we see with the Muppets is between Kermit and Miss Piggy, but the man who was given the voice to Kermit for decades has been fired by the Muppets studio, leaving the character's fate hanging in the balance this morning.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you give this a like and hit that subscribe button if this gave you a good time. After their quick comeback on the big and small screen, the Muppets will embark onto the next generation of entertainment with streaming. But before they bring out their album and Happy Haunts on Disney+, Kermit will have to get used to working with his new performing partner. There's gonna be a lot of mayhem on the next part, so until next time, see you later, dudes.
Well, this has been an evening to remember.
Why?
I forgot.